Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have to tell you, this latest General Hospital twist stopped me in my tracks. I've watched people make bad decisions before, but every now and then, a story comes along that reminds me how one moment of anger can change everything. Folks always say you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, and that's exactly what came to my mind when I started thinking about Curtis. No matter how much I try to look at both sides, it sure feels like he's about to learn a lesson the hard way. The more I look at this situation, the harder it is to defend what Curtis did. Losing control at Metro Court Gardens and attacking Isaiah wasn't just another heated soap moment. That one punch may have destroyed a gifted surgeon's future, and that's a heavy burden for anyone to carry. I keep thinking about how quickly tempers flare in life. 1 second you're convinced you're right, and the next you're staring at consequences that won't disappear. Lord have mercy. That's a mistake nobody can simply walk away from. Now the walls are closing in around Curtis. Those criminal charges aren't just there to create drama, they're forcing him to face the reality that every action has a price. I've always believed that real strength isn't about throwing a punch. It's about having enough patience to keep yourself from throwing one in the first place. Curtis let his anger take the driver's seat, and now he's riding straight toward Pentonville with very few exits left. What really caught my attention, though, is the plea deal waiting for him. On the surface, it almost sounds like the practical choice. Spend some time behind bars, avoid something even worse, and hope life is still waiting on the other side. But I don't think it's that simple. Every parent knows there are moments with a newborn that can never be replayed. First smiles, first cries, those sleepless nights that somehow become precious memories years later. If Curtis accepts that deal, even if his sentence isn't especially long, he'll miss part of a chapter he'll never get back. That's the kind of dilemma that keeps me thinking long after the episode ends. Sometimes there isn't a good choice, only the least painful one. Curtis may be weighing legal consequences, but I believe what's really eating at him is knowing his own actions created this impossible decision. I'll be darned if that isn't one of the most emotionally complicated stories GH has delivered in a while, because this isn't just about prison anymore. It's about regret, responsibility, and whether a man can still find a way to be the father he wants to become after making the biggest mistake of his life. The more I sit here thinking about it, the more I believe Curtis is about to face the hardest decision of his entire life. Forget the courtroom for a minute. Forget the lawyers and the criminal charges. The real battle is happening inside his own head. I can't imagine how angry he'd be knowing that while he's sitting behind the walls of Pentonville, Isaiah could be there every single day, watching that baby grow, offering support, sharing milestones, and becoming the dependable presence that Curtis always wanted to be. Now, I'm not saying Isaiah is trying to replace anyone. That's not even the point. Life has a funny way of filling empty spaces. When one person can't be there, someone else naturally steps in. I've seen that happen more than once in my own life. Nobody plans for it, but relationships are built through time, consistency, and simply showing up. If Curtis isn't there because he's serving time, he won't have any control over what those first precious months look like. That's the part that would absolutely eat me alive if I were in his shoes. Those first memories with a newborn are priceless. You never get another chance to experience them for the first time. The first time the baby wraps those tiny fingers around yours, the first sleepy smile in the middle of the night, the first moment that child recognizes your voice, those aren't things you can schedule for later or ask someone else to save for you. Once they're gone forever. Lord have mercy, that's enough to make any father question every decision sitting in front of him. At first glance, refusing the plea deal might sound brave. I understand why Curtis would want to fight. Nobody wants to admit guilt, especially someone as proud and determined as he is. Deep down, I'm sure part of him believes that if he stands his ground long enough, everything will somehow work itself out. But life doesn't always reward pride, and courtrooms certainly don't. Trials are unpredictable. One witness can change everything. One piece of evidence can completely shift the outcome. One decision by a jury can alter the course of an entire family's future. That's why I think Curtis has to stop looking at this as a question of winning or losing. Instead, he needs to ask himself which choice gives him the best chance to still be part of his child's life in the years ahead. If accepting the plea bargain means serving a shorter sentence, maybe that's the painful sacrifice that protects his future as a father. On the other hand, if he gambles on a trial and loses, he could find himself spending far longer in prison than he ever imagined. Suddenly, The months he was trying to avoid become years, and that's a frightening possibility. You know what I've learned over the years? Anger usually demands immediate action, but wisdom tells you to slow down. Curtis has already seen what happens when he lets his temper make decisions for him. That single outburst with Isaiah didn't just injure another man. It created a chain reaction that's now threatening every part of his own future. That's why I honestly hope he doesn't make another emotional decision just because he's scared or furious. Two bad choices don't somehow become one good one. If I were giving Curtis advice over a cup of coffee, I'd tell him to lean on the people who truly want what's best for him. This isn't the time to pretend he has all the answers. He needs a smart attorney who will tell him the truth instead of what he wants to hear. He also needs family and friends willing to challenge his thinking when emotions cloud his judgment. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is admit they need guidance. There's no shame in that. In fact, I'd argue it takes far more courage than charging into another fight. And then there's Portia. I can't help wondering what she's feeling through all of this. No matter how complicated their relationship has become, she's still watching someone she cares about standing at the edge of a life-changing decision. Trina is caught in the middle as well, forced to watch the people she loves deal with the fallout from one terrible mistake. Then, of course, there's the innocent baby who hasn't done anything wrong but will still feel the consequences of whatever Curtis decides. That's what makes this storyline hit so hard for me. The punishment won't stop with Curtis. The emotional weight will spread through an entire family. If you ask me, General Hospital is setting up one of those stories that stays with viewers long after the credits roll. This isn't simply about whether Curtis walks into Pentonville. It's about whether he can swallow his pride, accept responsibility, and make the difficult choice that gives him the best chance to rebuild his life later. Sometimes doing the right thing doesn't feel like victory. Sometimes it feels like accepting a painful loss today so tomorrow still has hope. I'm genuinely anxious to see what happens next because I don't think there's an easy answer here. Curtis can gamble on a full criminal trial and hope everything falls into place, or he can accept a plea deal that hurts now but may protect his future. Either way, the decision will shape his relationship with his child, affect Portia and Trina in ways they may never fully recover from, and determine whether Curtis eventually earns the chance to become the father he wants to be. Folks, this is exactly the kind of emotional storytelling that keeps me coming back to General Hospital year after year, and I have a feeling the biggest consequences are still waiting just around the corner. As I look at everything that's unfolding, I keep coming back to one simple thought. This story isn't really about prison. It's about consequences, second chances, and whether one terrible mistake has to define the rest of a man's life. Curtis still has a choice to make, but every path in front of him comes with pain. The question is which pain he can live with, and which one gives him the best chance to rebuild what he's already started to lose. I'll tell you this much, General Hospital has me completely invested in where this storyline is heading. Whether Curtis accepts the plea deal or takes his chances in a full criminal trial, I don't believe anyone is walking away untouched. The outcome will ripple through every relationship connected to him, and I have a feeling the emotional fallout will be even bigger than the legal consequences. That's exactly why I'll be watching closely, because sometimes the most unforgettable stories aren't the ones with the biggest explosions. They're the ones where a single decision changes the lives of everyone involved. Folks, I think this is one of those moments, and I can't wait to see what happens next.